Hi, I'm Andres, class of 22, and my story starts with my mother. She had been facing immigration issues for a few years now. We fought it in the courts as long as we could, but eventually a decision came down, and the decision was no. She would have to be removed. So we consulted our lawyer, and he said that there was nothing we could do without a child in military service or a child who has special needs, that the courts would not look favorably at my mother's situation. So yeah, I went home and I thought about it for a few days. And at the time, I was particularly sensitive to the idea of my family not being together because my dad had passed away about 2 years earlier. And the wound from that was still fresh enough that I desperately wanted to do anything that I could do to keep what was left of my family together. So my options were join the army or lose your family. And I pretty much hated both of those choices. But I thought about it. And even though I was absolutely terrified at the idea of joining the military, to me it seemed like a closer to fair deal than the other choice. Whatever strength and intelligence that I have to give would be at my country's disposal, and in exchange, my family would be allowed to stay whole. I go through the process, and a couple of months into it, I get a call from my mother, and she tells me that the lawyer had spoken with her and that he explained that he was wrong, that my service would not help my mother's situation in any way, that he would refund our money, and that she would have to be removed anyway. And the next few weeks were, I think, the most miserable and painful weeks, months of my life. I felt distraught. In a way, I felt betrayed by my own country. But more than that, I felt like a total idiot for the way things had played out. And eventually, from my behavior, it became clear to the army that I was experiencing some kind of distress. And they brought up the question of whether I felt that I had the strength to continue to serve. I didn't know what to say. Yeah, at the time, I felt like I had made the dumbest choice I'd ever done in my life. My uniform was just a costume that I put on every day. As far as I could tell, I had no reason to be there anymore. So, no, I did not think that I could keep going. And once again, I had two god awful choices in front of me: to continue to serve in the army or break my commitment and go home with nothing. And I thought about it so hard, and the more I thought about it, the more the idea of leaving bothered me. To just throw down my commitment to my country and say that I'm not on your side because you won't give me what I want, that didn't seem right to me. So I didn't want to turn my back on my commitment, but I didn't want to walk away with nothing. I asked myself, was there a way I can walk away from this with a prize that makes this all worth it? And for months, I had no answer. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I was just starting to feel hopeless again. But but the best thing about being that lost is you're so open to ideas from the strangest places. Because there was a show that an army friend had introduced me to. I liked it. I would rewatch it all the time. And this show was about a kid who wanted to be a superhero. But it turns out he's born without any powers. So, he's thinking that he's going to be given something great in life, and then life tells him no. this great thing that you thought you were going to get is never going to be yours. And he didn't care. He was devastated, but he didn't care. He was still going to try to get into this great school for superheroes, and he said he was going to try his best no matter the circumstances. And so I'm watching the show, and I ask myself, I wonder what great schools look like in real life. You know, I knew the military had educational benefits, but I never thought about it because I didn't really come from a family that goes to college. I started to do research on a lot of good schools, the job prospects, the salaries, the contributions to society that these people go on to do. And I realized if I went on to live a life like this, that I walk away from this a winner. And in that way, I decided that my revenge would be to just live such a good, prosperous life that the dumbest decisions I ever made become the best decisions I ever made. So I looked into it, and I found this organization called Service to School. They help veterans apply to really good schools. And I worked with them for a few months. I applied, I hoped, and here I am. I couldn't believe it. I got here, and because I'm a transfer student, they you have to pick your major pretty early on. So I get here, and they say, and even though I got here with the intention of majoring in computer science, in the end, I chose economics, because in a lecture I heard an economics professor explain that it's a unique science. Because you don't get an experiment phase. You know, in the biosciences, you get a dozen mice and you run tests, but with economics, you don't get a dozen economies to test your theory. You know, you get one chance. And that's when I realized that in that way, economics was something that's been close to my heart, because that's what most of my story has been. The idea that you get a set of choices, good or bad, and you have to do as much research as you can about them, and then you execute. There's no trial. You know, for me, economics was the perfect mix of all the logic and reason that I wanted in a major, with all the unfortunate truths of reality. The truth that you only get one shot, no trial runs. And at first, as you know, as you saw through my story, it was a very bitter pill to swallow, that truth. But let me tell you that after having gone through it, the more that you face that ugly truth, the more you stop being afraid of it. And more than that, you start learning how to walk away from it a winner.